and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel, where my mic is on. Good. I'm checking that because yesterday I spent like an hour with a muted mic and didn't realize it on my other stream. So I think we're going to be continuing today with Caleb Muppet and the Libertarians, because that just promises to be just such a rich seam of bullshit. Though we do have some other options that I just happened to find, and... Okay, well, no, we already did Everyone Hates Joe Biden. There's also Fosh reacts to two tankies coping about North Korea. And it's like, okay, I don't know anything really about Second Thought. I know Hakeem is, like, not bad when it comes to getting sort of general facts right on the DPRK, though he does get into this sort of weird cultural essentialism where he tries to say that there's something, that it's not somehow like uncommunist to have hereditary rule because there's a Korean tradition of hereditary rule, which, like, there's a tradition of that in a lot of, I mean, Russia had a tradition of hereditary rule too, and then they got rid of it, and it was an unalloyed improvement. Hello, Mask. I mean, but I mean, you can be fairly certain Vush doesn't know anything on the subject, and he's going to say all sorts of complete nonsense. But I do think Caleb and the Libertarians is where we're going to start. It is an open stream, so I mean, he doesn't even know necessarily who's coming on with him, and that adds an interesting element.
I do not do a...
Oh, fuck off. Like, what? How did I end up getting all these chud ads all of a sudden? It's like, ever since they made it impossible to use ad blockers, the ads have been, you know, first it was that shitty video game, Hero Wars or whatever the hell it was, which has, like, the worst gameplay I've ever seen. If that's, like, what they advertise is the best of the gameplay, I can't see why anyone would pay actual money to play it. But then, you know, it's like fucking Daily Wire shit and Joe Rogan.
Podcast, UFC event, I don't do
Yeah, basically.
without using...
Well, no, not everybody.
Oh, that one's a little...
Like, I mean, there are certainly cultures that have not had a Wait, it's not impossible to use ad blockers? What ad blockers still work on YouTube? Because if there's an ad blocker that would spare me that bullshit, I would immediately adopt it. Like, the Mapuche don't really have a tradition of hereditary rule. They actually have a tradition of very sort of horizontal and decentralized organization, which is a big part of why they've never actually officially ended their fight against colonialism. There's never been anyone who could actually bindingly accept a surrender on behalf of the entire Mapuche nation, so... I mean, there definitely are cultures that really never got into the hereditary rule thing, but I mean, a lot of people do. You can't really say it's some specific Korean thing. And not only that, when Kim Il-sung decided to roll out the idea of just naming his fucking son the successor, that was a very controversial decision. A lot of his, like, close associates in the Central Committee of the Workers' Party did not like that idea, and coincidentally did not continue to have posts in the Central Committee of the Workers' Party. So clearly, this, you can't, I mean, so it's like, you can make arguments against the just over-the-top ridiculous demonization of the DPRK that goes on, without trying to justify, trying to come up with a way that the a hereditary cult of personality that they're now actually seem to be flirting with the idea of getting rid of is somehow, you know, in keeping with any interpretation of what communism is. Does Adblocker Ultimate actually work? So, okay, Well, just to catch anyone up who did not catch the last bit of yesterday's stream when we started this thing. So Caleb Muppet, ever since he decided to endorse the White Rage against the War Machine protest, this rally organized by literal neo-Nazis and the Libertarian Party, he's been like shocked to find that actually the sort of people who hang out with the people who organize Charlottesville, they don't even like fake communists like him, and he's kind of been freaked out by it. So now he's invited libertarians to school him. And the first one, I don't know if this is just the line this Joshua Smith trots out all the time, or whether it was like specifically from a knowledge of Caleb Muppet, but he started out by saying that he's read more communist literature than Caleb Muppet, and I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, if that was an accident, if that was just what he says every time he ends up arguing with somebody who claims to be standing communism, then yeah, this is like the first time, most likely, that is almost certainly true. Hey, River Rune. Hey, Adria.
So I actually thought it would be a great idea for Joshua to come on the stream. But he said he can't.
Is he? I'm sure that sounds like an absolutely wonderful idea. Why not have somebody who might possibly be an even bigger jabroni than Caleb Muppet on the stream? Make him look good by comparison, even though he's wearing... What the fuck is that suit? Like, this is junior high vice principal at the special assembly because a teacher died or something.
Come on the stream because he has children. And I said, well, why don't you just go in the other room and come on the stream? And then he proceeded to brag about how he has children, proceeded to explain to me his, about how he's amazing because he's had children, essentially, bragging about his sperm count. This is what we're dealing with libertarians. So,
motherfucker, why? How are you gonna act like this is a surprise? This is like what people were pointing this out to you when you decided to throw in your lot with the motherfuckers. That was like literally just, and now he's like, holy shit, libertarians are actually kind of disgusting. Wow, who knew?
I thought that it would be good to just open this up, and if any libertarian wants to come on here and explain to me what communism is, because apparently I don't know anything about it. Right?
Well, I mean that much is true. That absolutely is true. The real question is, do the libertarians who are going to come onto his stream know more or less than him? And I think that is a very open question because he knows very little. I mean, assuming that the things he says are an accurate representation of his knowledge, I have no idea. The Incas also actually had had definitely a hereditary tradition in there, a hereditary caste system as well. People were, I find it very hard to believe that he did not know of their shit before he decided to do White Rage against the War Machine, but I mean, if he didn't, people were pointing it out. People were pointing it out to him, and he just sort of declared them all CIA plans. Black Agenda Report is the CIA. Liberals claim the Black Agenda Report is actually Putin in blackface. But Caleb Muppet knows better. They're the CIA, so they're both somehow. Oh, you said North American. Well,
communist countries. I'm only the leader of a communist organization.
No, you're not.
And I've only been at global communist gatherings. I've only
when,
I've only studied the writings of Deng Xiaoping. I've only been.
Well, that's the one you're gonna go with. Like, that's what you're gonna go with. I mean, not the 2 paragraphs of Marx you got. Like, I mean, he does have like an entire fucking paragraph of socialism, utopian, and scientific. Like, I mean, he isn't gonna flex that. He read Deng Xiaoping.
To,
That's
countries and global communism. I don't know anything about it. These
well, yeah,
libertarians,
you
they
don't. I mean, you don't.
know everything there is to know about communism. I know nothing. So I thought I would just bring a couple libertarians on.
I mean, I need to clip him saying he doesn't know anything about communism because I feel like that could be used.
And it's open, right? The link is in the chat. The link is in the chat, and you can come on. And you don't have to be a libertarian. I know if you're a fan of the show or you're just somebody else who wants to just come on and
Yeah,
talk.
you can just be anyone who sucks. Anyone who sucks is welcome. Just as long as you suck, you can go on his show.
But I'll just bring them on. I mean, anybody who wants to come on is I'll bring you on. Couple ground rules. One, I have to be able to see your face. If I can't see your face, I'm not bringing you on. Right? You're seeing my face. This is my face. This is.
Yeah, but we don't have to be seeing your face. You could. I mean, I'm pretty sure I speak for a broad segment of the people watching this that looking at Caleb Muppet does not enhance the experience.
It's not a mask. And because of that, you have to show your face. That's rule number one.
Who cares?
Rule number two is I can boot you out at any time. I can boot you out at any time. And if this turns into some childish insult fest.
Why would that ever happen? Like, I mean, the combination of Caleb Maupin and libertarians, how could this possibly turn into a childish insult fest?
Or whatever, I'll kick you out of here. I want to have a substantial conversation. And it will start with me just asking you to explain what communism is.
Good to see you here.
And we'll go from there. But if this turns into childish insults, the kick from stream button is right here, and it's very, very.
I kicked him from stream once. I mean, I kicked him out of my chat. I blocked him, and he cried about it on Twitter.
Easy to use. So, don't think that you can come on here and act a fool.
That is like my flex. That is like my brush with fucking celebrity. That was my 15 seconds of, like, almost being vaguely well known, but only amongst people I really have no desire to be in any way connected with, I suppose. But I do like to tell the story of my kicking him out of my chat.
Because it'll end like that. So I guess we got two people. I can see their faces now. There's someone named Samuel. I can see his face. And there's Nick. I can see Nick's face. So Nick was first. I'm going to bring Nick on. And like I said, feel free to come on,
don't tell a bunch of libertarians to feel free to come on your stream.
To come on. Like I said, there will be. I'll boot you out of here if you get too wild. And the link is down below. The link is over in the chat.
Motherfucker, this guy cannot sound.
One more time.
This guy is incapable of not sounding like a fucking junior high principal. Like junior high vice principal. In fact, he sounds more and more like my horrible dickhead of a junior school vice principal who thought it would be cool to begin assemblies by doing his really, really bad white guy Arsenio Hall impression.
Just so that other people who come on can have it. I want to have the link on the stream, and then we'll bring...
I'm glad you have the little boy. And yes, living on out of spite, I am very much a believer in it. There are so many motherfuckers that I want to see off. Like, I mean, I'm still kind of pissed off at, like, the parting shot of Henry Kissinger, that he did not take Joe Biden with him. Like, that motherfucker, he's been around a little bit too long. Like, I mean, seriously. He couldn't have taken him with him? Or Dick Cheney?
Nick on.
Go to the light, motherfucker.
So, there we go. And like I said,
well, fucking sprawled it.
There we go. So, join
Bueller.
The stream.
Bueller.
Explain communism.
Press the notification bell. Like, does he see? I don't know. Maybe I'm like excessively self-conscious that I do this, but I actually have a window projector set up so that I can see what I'm looking like on camera every second of the time that I'm on stream. Because I do not want to end up just sort of defaulting to that posture, like, I mean, like fucking melting.
Okay.
Like fucking Mr.
Creosote. All right, so now we got the link. And that is, anyone else wants to hop on, get in line. Oh. There's 3 people ahead of you, but really only 2 because I can't see Ryan's face. And so until Ryan reveals his face, he's not coming on.
Who gives a fuck
All
about
right,
it?
Nick, how are you?
Oh, wow. He's got the Ireland beanie, sort of getting some Scumbag Steve vibes.
How are you tonight, Nick?
I'm doing all right, thanks. I'm excited to be on the show. I'm just recovered from COVID, so I just got to warn you guys, be careful. It's out there. It's
okay. We've reached the part where actually the fucking libertarians are better about fucking COVID than Caleb Maupin is at this point. Like, I mean, at this point, liberals get annoyed when you start to say, the pandemic's not really over. It's still the number 3 cause of death. Maybe you should, like, put on a fucking mask. And now it's like, Joe Biden says I don't have to. And it's like, yeah, fuck him. And this fucking libertarian gets on and is like, yeah, be careful out there. COVID will fuck you up. I'm sure it's downhill from here.
Circulating. It's real. It put me in bed for a week, but now on the tail end of it, I've got the energy to move mountains.
Okay. Explain communism to me, Nick.
Somebody needs to explain communism to this boy.
What do I know about communism besides studying a little bit of Marx in political science class? Well,
that's probably already more than the guy you're talking to. I mean, okay, it's like he's already less arrogant about it, which, okay, this will be interesting.
Supposedly, we're supposed to pool our resources together, right? And work together and share them as equitably as possibly, right?
I mean, it's like, this is actually somewhat better than Caleb Muppet's version of communism, which is just like FDR. But okay, this is going to be bad. This is going to go downhill. This has to go downhill.
No, actually.
Oh no.
No, I'm just. Where does that come from?
I mean,
from each to their need, from each of their capabilities to each to their need. What is that saying? How does that saying go?
That is a saying that I have literally never heard Caleb Muppet use.
Well, that quote, I've got that right here, actually, and we'll show you what that quote, from each according to their own ability, to each according to their need. We'll put that on the screen here. Hold on.
Oh, wow. I mean, he's going to put it on the screen. I mean, I have to say, it's still a better account. It's closer. It's not right, because he didn't say anything about a stateless, classless society. But if you can come, but the to each according, from each according to their ability, to each according to their needs. Kind of, if you, you can kind of get there from interpreting that on a certain level. So it's like, that's already better than. We're going from a low bar here. We're going from Caleb Muppet's fucking FDR fetishist explanation of what communism is. FDR with one party. So that is the standard we have to beat. And I would say it's been beaten here. Not great, but it.
I'll show you where that actually comes from.
Oh, is he gonna point out that actually that is, I think, from the Acts of the Apostles?
That's from the Critique of the Goethe Program.
The Gotha. Not he thinks that he doesn't know the difference between Gotha, which is a city in East Germany, and Goethe, which is like Germany's Shakespeare. The Goethe program. In a higher phase of communist society, after the enslaving subordination of the individual to the division of labor, and therewith also the antithesis between mental and physical labor has vanished, after labor has not only become not only a means of life, but life's prime want. Okay, he's actually not showing that part. It comes later. But okay, this is still okay. Let's see where
which
this
is a pamphlet that Karl Marx wrote, and he's explaining. I guess I have to take this off the screen so you can see. He's explaining that in a socialist society like the Soviet Union, Cuba, Venezuela,
well, I mean, he specifically says a higher phase of communist society,
etc., you're going to have a whole lot of inequality. You're going to have a whole lot of all of these things. He says these defects are inevitable in the first phase of communist society, as it is just emerged from the prolonged birth pangs of capitalist society. And then he goes on, in a higher phase of communist society, after the enslaving subordination of the individual to division of labor, and therewith the
like, okay, so but what the fuck's his point? He managed to almost get that quote right. Like, who cares?
Just between mental and physical labor has vanished. After labor has become not only a means of life, but life's prime want, and after the productive forces have increased with the all-around development of the individual, and the springs of cooperative wealth flow more abundantly, only then can the narrow horizon of bourgeois rights...
Yeah, I mean, and then, look, cooperative wealth. So, I mean, he's talking about pooling resources. Actually, so whatever this guy is, he's managed to do a better job of explaining what communism is than Caleb Maupin does.
Be crossed in its entirety, and society inscribe on its banners, from each according to his own ability, and to each according to his needs. And what that means is that you cannot have a society where there's equality until you raise the level of productive forces massively, right?
Oh, God. And here's where we get the problem, because, of course, Caleb believes that communism is when line goes up. He just sort of implants what Marx and Engels had to say about the capitalist economies of the late 19th century and says, well, obviously this means we still need to be increasing production. Wait, post-scarcity? I never heard of it.
You cannot build equality in poverty, right? That's what he's saying. And that in the first stage of communism, there's going to be vast inequality. But that inequality or that problem can be overcome by the fact that we can increase productivity in society. You have to get rid...
Well, no, that's not what he's saying. He's actually saying multiple other things here. Because it isn't just line goes up, therefore we have communism. It's we're overcoming the enslaving subordination of the individual to the division of labor, and therefore therewith also the antithesis between mental and physical labor. He's not saying that when you reach a certain productivity level, suddenly all this stuff happens. He's saying that is one of the things that happens along with this reorganization of how we produce things. Like, I mean, it's literally not saying the thing that he says.
Of scarcity. You have to get to a post-scarcity society. And when you get to such a post-scarcity society, when people only have to work because they feel like it, when people only, when people basically work to not be bored, when labor becomes life's prime want, meaning people do it to not be bored, they don't have to, when there's no division between mental and physical labor, and there's so much, the springs of cooperative wealth flow more abundantly, then at that point, people can...
Like, I mean, what's interesting, he's unable to paraphrase. He clearly does not comprehend what he just read. Because he's just using the words. He's just regurgitating it in a slightly different order. But with the exact words. Because he does not, like, because if he actually tried to apply this and take into account the fact that actually we've gotten to a point where companies are actually producing things, making them shittier in order to produce more of them, because they're already able to produce more than anyone needs. The entire line goes up, therefore communism, reading that he's trying to use, falls apart.
You can just take what they want and do what they feel like doing. But as he says at the beginning, that's not the way it is until we get to that ultimate goal of a world without.
Oh, well, yeah, no, because he has no class analysis. He thinks that fascism is communism. I mean, like a few weeks ago, we saw him saying that the Nazis, when they came to power, what they did was degrowth. And it's like, you're just trying to throw these buzzwords into fucking random places.
Scarcity. That's where that quote comes from. And actually, according to his needs, that comes from the Bible. That comes from the book of Acts, because the disciples.
Oh, wow. I actually got the right book it was from. I just read that someplace.
They distributed wealth according to need, according to the book of Acts, verse 432. And so that's actually Marx was making a biblical allusion. So that's where that quote comes from. So
cool.
Yeah.
That's very fascinating. Thank you. So with
he's clearly not fascinated, because actually, I mean, Caleb added basically nothing to that, except, like, he gave a citation and then misunderstood the citation.
1% of our workforce able to generate all of our food needs in America, and very few more percent able to...
sorry, I did not mean to... I didn't know why that actually just happened, that the chat window refreshed. But, yeah, I mean, he was definitely quoting the Bible. I mean, he was quoting, and it wouldn't be surprising. I mean, the kind of education he received, he would have been familiar with the New Testament. So, it's not actually, wouldn't be surprising that would be one of the allusions that he would make.
Generate the manufacturing needs. Have we reached that point yet, do you think, of the super productive individual?
Oh fucking hell. He's actually asking the $1 million question here. Because there are so many areas of life, so many areas of production where we reached that a long time ago, which is why we have bullshit like planned obsolescence. I said planned adolescence, which no. In order to counteract the fact that actually if you produce things in the quality and quantity it is possible to produce them, you saturate the market immediately, and shit's done.
I think we're close, but the problem is, under capitalism, the only way you can survive is by selling your labor power to a boss, renting your...
Like, how's that a but? Like, I mean... Where's he going with this? Because the point is, if we're close already, leaving aside that in some areas we're not just close, we're past it, which is why we've got more fucking empty housing than we have unhoused people in this country and quite a few other countries. I know in Ireland that is the case, in Britain as well, a number of other countries as well. We're producing considerably more food than we have people to eat it, which is why half of it gets destroyed before it ever hits retail, just to keep the prices up. I mean, there are plenty of examples where we are either at or past the scarcity mark. I mean, climate change is probably going to fuck with some of that, but the point is that actually the fact that we are not, that in fact, that if anything, we are backsliding in terms of the position of the working class, as neoliberalism managed to sort of reconfigure the playing field in a very unfavorable sort of way over the past 40 years. If anything, we're seeing that this constant skyrocketing of production is being combined with a massive decline in the position of the working class. Yeah, he doesn't know what the fuck the working class is.
Self out. And the more productive labor becomes, the fewer people get hired.
The more I look at this guy, the more I feel like I've seen his face someplace.
And that's why in this system we have a problem that no other system in history has ever had, of people being homeless because there are too many houses.
That is an example of the objective overproduction that you called Thought Slime a Malthusian for acknowledging.
People being hungry because there is too much food, right? Right? The problem of overproduction where the worker cannot buy back what he produces. Self-driving cars.
Well, no, there's the problem of subjective overproduction, where the overproduction would go away. It would be actually a shortfall if the product were available free of charge. I mean, this is part of Kropotkin's critique of this definition of overproduction, because he points out a lot of the things that, according to Marx and Engels, are overproduced. If you were to actually distribute them amongst the population by need, you would come up short. So he felt that that was not actually a great term for it. But then there is the objective overproduction of stuff, where it is just literally, even if it were free, there is way more than anyone needs. International Olympic Karaoke Incel Yearbook Creator Magazine.
Would be a great thing in a rational society. But in this society, self-driving cars would lead to riots in the streets. As Andrew Yang, the Forward reporter, I read The War on Normal People. It's a great book.
He thinks that Andrew Yang wrote a great book.
He talks about how self-driving cars is hanging over the U.S. economy as a curse.
Well, I mean, it's hanging over, like, pedestrians as a curse. It's hanging over fellow motorists as a curse. Oh, it's okay if you're Caleb Maupin. Ah, yes.
That's not rational. Self-driving cars would lead to this chore called driving being unnecessary.
Well, so would decent fucking public transportation, but you don't hear fucking Andrew Yang talking about that.
Right? You know,
I can't wait for the day where I can start the party in the car on the way.
Oh yeah, okay, he really is a libertarian. Where he immediately goes is he'd like to be able to drive drunk. Yeah, that's...
Well, right. And the idea, right, that Marx talks about is this problem of labor being replaced by technology, leading to greater poverty, and the market being glutted with products that can't be sold needs to be resolved by having central rational planning of the economy. That's what he's talking about, right? And that's the first stage.
He's like, this is totally incoherent, because first he starts talking about how it's just he rewrites Marx and Engels to say that it's just line going up will suddenly get rid of the division of labor and everybody will just work because they feel like it and all that shit, which is not. I mean, A, that's not what they said. B, that doesn't make fucking sense. But it is kind of necessary if you're going to try to stand China as an example of some sort of, like, communist vanguard, as opposed to just being capitalists cosplaying with hammers and sickles and shit. And now this does not... This doesn't compute. These things, you can't, on the one hand, say that this is all going to be resolved by productivity going up to some sort of level, and then acknowledge that actually it's already at or exceeded that level, and that hasn't changed it. Yeah, I can see why. Yeah. I mean, no wonder somebody's mind immediately turns to drink.
Which is socialism, which is what they have in China and Vietnam and places like that.
I mean, we have centralized planning of our economy to a degree.
Well, I mean, if you include, I mean, that is actually true in a couple of senses. Is the thing. Because these large corporate entities, they are doing a huge amount of central planning. You also have the relationships with say high tech industry and DARPA, and then there is a very close relationship between the state and the most advanced areas of production. And in some places, in some sectors anyway, there is just outright planning. I mean, that certainly goes on at the Pentagon. That certainly goes on, at the National Institutes of Health to a great extent, where you basically have this sort of open door, and representatives of industry say, "Okay, here's what we're projecting in the next couple of years. Here's what," and the government says, "Here's what we're offering you money for in the next couple of years," and there is a certain level of central planning. The issue is not whether there is planning, it's whose interest that planning is in and who actually is involved in coming up with what the plan says.
There's encouragement by the central U.S. forces. We're talking about onshoring a lot of manufacturing through whatever means the government has.
Oh well, I mean that the main means is that that workers' wages are so far down the shitter in this country that it's actually getting that the shipping cost is almost to the point the cost of shipping the stuff back here after it's been made by and cheap labor platforms like China and various other places is actually beginning to create a difference that actually makes it cheaper to just make it here. So it's absolutely not a good thing. That's just, and when you add into the fact that probably a lot of it will be done by like prison labor, so they'll basically not be getting paid at all in a lot of cases. Like, I mean, whenever I hear people talk about, "Ooh, manufacturing jobs are coming back," it's like, who gives a fuck about the manufacturing jobs? Like, what made the manufacturing jobs, what made those jobs something that people mourned was not that it was just jobs in manufacturing. It was the fact that you had actually strong unions forcing decent wages and working conditions, the sort of jobs that somebody could actually retire on and shit. And the reason they're coming back is that none of that stuff applies.
So, no, I lost my train of thought there.
That's okay, but I mean, the idea is to generate abundance, right? To raise the living standards, and that's why this woke left, when they talk about degrowth, I don't know where they're getting that. I just showed you the quote from Marx about how communism is only possible.
I wonder if they're getting that from the fact that the massive overproduction that already exists is imperiling the future of human survival on the planet. I wonder if they're getting it from that, for example. Maybe there have been developments in the economy and in the means of production between when Marx and Engels wrote that in like the 1870s or so, and now. Maybe things have changed a bit. Like maybe they're getting that because they're into this materialism shit that you hear so much about. That but that's probably just some woke CIA thing. Materialism.
Well, the full higher stage of communism is only possible with vast abundance. So when these people talk about degrowth, I mean, I don't know what they're talking about.
No,
right?
well, that much is clear. That's very true. He has done entire videos demonstrating that he does not know what the fuck degrowth is. He does not know what anyone's talking about. And he's very proud of that.
Where poverty is not created by abundance. People don't get poorer because more wealth is created. So then the level of wealth in society can vastly expand, and we can get to this kind of ideal world where people just take what they need and do what they feel like doing. That's kind of the idea.
Yes, that is a utopian communism. That's that post-capitalism society, right? Where Well,
utopianism is something Marx argued against, right? Utopianism was the idea that you could just create it with your mind, right? The people just come together and be good and share everything. There are a lot of
the way he's this is just one long I'm sorry what. That's all this is. This is just one long I'm sorry what, because he's just jumping from like one fucking thing to another. He does not seem to know what any of these things are or how they fit together. I mean, the whole idea is what he's doing here is just like sort of a less polished version of what Fuchs does, where what he's doing is essentially just throwing random factoids and pseudo-factoids at this guy in order to supposedly demonstrate that he knows things. Except, if you know anything about the things that he's throwing out there, like, for example, how they relate to each other, then it's just like whiplash.
A lot of people who did that in Marx's time. And, you know, in America, there was like New Harmony, you know, and there was all kinds of communes and all that. And Marx said that's not rational. Socialism.
Actually, I mean, Marx actually had quite a lot of respect for communes. In fact, one of the interesting things that happened, this was during his lifetime. You know, some Marxists in Russia wrote this stinging critique of the Mir, which was a type of like commune that was this is in pre-revolutionary Russia, that was taking shape in some places, you know, as sort of prefigurative communism, essentially. And they had said, no, you can't do this. Marx says you have to have capitalism first, and we're in pre-revolutionary Russia, guys. We're nowhere near fucking capitalism. We're deep in feudalism. And Marx, who had actually learned Russian specifically to be able to wade into this shit, wrote a whole letter to the editor of the publication saying, no, that is absolutely not what I was saying. I was not saying that there are like specific stages that you have to go through. I was saying that actually the places that I looked at went through these sort of stages, but there's absolutely no reason that anyone else would have to go through the exact same ones, and actually maybe the whole Mir thing is kind of based. I mean, he wrote actually at some length against the approach that Caleb here is advocating.
It's not going to be created by our minds. It's going to be created by society moving ahead, just like capitalism came out of feudalism. Capitalism was a great advance over feudalism, right? And feudalism was a great advance over slavery. And slavery was a great advance over hunter-gatherer civilization. And human beings were constantly reinventing our relationship with Mother Nature, being more efficient, advancing greater technology. And when we have a huge leap in our advances, it comes with a new social system, right? That's the idea. That's what Marx was getting at there. And that yeah, we will eventually get to a world where scarcity is abolished and the need for a government goes away.
Except we're in a world where scarcity on a lot of really key shit is abolished, and the capitalist system is actually, well, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's looking entirely stable, but it's not the fucking working class at the moment that's looking like it's going to do for capitalism. We need to work on that. It needs to be us. That's the only chance of anything good coming out of any of this. But at the moment, it just looks like climate change might be what actually does for it.
And that we can kind of get to an ideal world. But in order to do that, you have to overcome scarcity. The basis of it is getting rid of scarcity. You have to create abundance. And that's why the leader of China, Deng Xiaoping, he said poverty.
Motherfucker, Nick Nunnally has looped Caleb. He's just, this is like Caleb's like fucking answering machine tape right here. And if you listen to it long enough, you just immediately get back to him back to exactly where he started with. Jesus.
Poverty is not socialism, but to be rich is glorious, which is Ping. He said poverty is not socialism, but to be rich is glorious.
Yeah, so the fuck what? Like, okay, poverty is not socialism, fine. But what's glorious about being rich? Like, define being rich, first of all. Because if you're saying to be rich in the midst of, and indeed as a result of poverty, is glorious, well, I mean, that would be in character. But yeah, fuck that.
which is the same thing that Marx said in that quote I just showed you there.
No, it really fucking isn't.
Right? You can't have communism on the basis of poverty.
Yeah, Deng Xiaoping, very, very loyal follower. So was
that sarcasm?
Would like a UBI something, and it's just so funny because the end state of communism is the dissolution of the authority of the state, and that's exactly what libertarians, anarcho-libertarians are after. And
Except not really, because the entire system that they're calling for, I mean, to the extent that you can actually declare it coherent at all, which is why this is such a great conversation, because it's two people with totally incoherent ideas for what kind of society they want. But like, you would literally not be able to have what libertarians want without a state, because otherwise, why the fuck is anyone going to give a shit what a bunch of like self-styled anarcho-libertarian capitalists have to say about anything?
And so
the only reason they're gonna need cops is what I'm saying here. And if they got cops, then there's some kind of a state.
I think at some point the horseshoe maybe kisses at the end there. Is a good first step something like a universal basic income? I think that, to me.
See, it's nice to actually hear this coming from somebody who is ideologically close to the origins of that shitty idea. Because a lot of people just don't realize that was Milton Friedman's brainchild. And the reason he thought it was such a great idea, and the reason that so many, like, sort of fake progressive neoliberal politicians also think it's a great idea, is that it is all about privatizing the entire social welfare system. The whole idea is that you privatize all the fucking, like, social programs and benefits and all sorts of things that people get, and then you give them $5 a month, and you say, here, with this money, you can choose which formerly socialized benefit you would like to have. Maybe this was the month you have housing. Maybe this is the month you do healthcare. Maybe this is the month you send your kids to school.
Me would be a great first step as far as distributing wealth equally.
Well, I am not. Well, first of all, you just got to get that phrase "equal" out of your mind, right? Because
yeah, why would we want to have?
Because at no point, I mean, in China, there's billionaires that are very.
Yeah, that's not actually. So what? In China, there are billionaires. That's actually a fairly good sign that there's nothing to do with communism there, because
wealthy. There's people with lower wages. We're not trying. I learned that in school too. The communists want everyone to get paid the exact same wage, no matter how hard they work. That's not in Marx anywhere, right? So you got to forget that word equality, right? Just
of all the things to forget. Yes, let's forget. See, I would have thought that, given that Marx's entire argument was about how actually there is no such thing as concentrated wealth that isn't the result of distributed poverty and exploitation, and that he very clearly thought that was a bad thing, that actually he was not necessarily very much on team inequality, but obviously Caleb knows better.
That's just not what's going on there, right? It's about central planning of the means of production. It's about.
Well, no, I mean, it's about who controls the means of production, which is another thing Caleb always avoids. He never wants to talk about who controls the means of production.
About society rationally controlling the means of production. But as far as the universal basic income, I'm not against it, right?
Why not? It's a shitty idea. He likes shitty ideas.
Idea of having a universal basic income, it would be great, but it's not going to solve the problem. And I'm concerned about how the Forward Party guy, Andrew Yang, some of it, the way he presents it, he says, well, we'll just give everyone a bank transfer every month, right? Like $1,000, right? We'll just.
Yeah, and the rent will go up by exactly that much.
Give everyone $1,000 every month. But then we're going to get rid of food stamps, and we're going to get rid of unemployment insurance, and we're going to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this. I really hate doing this, But what he is very much pointing out the exact problem with UBI. It is always at the expense of all sorts of other things that are much more beneficial. And it's never enough money that somebody could actually really afford to just say, fuck it, I don't want, none of these jobs are any good. I would rather just spend the next few months working on my poetry or some shit.
Get rid of, WIC and everyone just gets an automatic bank transfer. And what he really wants to do is eliminate thousands and thousands and thousands of government jobs, right? And that leads to all kinds of people that have good paying jobs with benefits and high wages and union representation losing their jobs, and all of a sudden they don't have that money to spend.
Yeah, I mean, again, I absolutely, this is painful. Worst guy you know has totally valid point, but this is exactly right. This is exactly, he is totally correct on this one thing. He is much better on why UBI sucks than he is on, like, what things he just read from Marx actually mean.
Right? So, like, thousands of government employees lose their jobs, and everyone just gets a bank transfer, and we basically, all that money that would be going into the economy from those government jobs vanishes. That I don't agree with, right? I am for a universal
so his argument is not, his argument is just entirely based on the fact that there's going to be less spending in the economy. Wow, that's very communist of him. Like, I mean, not at one point does he even... there's an obvious... this would be a point where if he had a class analysis, where if he even had a coherent notion of what the working class even is, you could actually kind of trot it out here and explain what's wrong. But he doesn't, so he's just talking about it like the issue is people need to spend more money.
Income if it is in addition to other programs. But if it's a replacement for the programs, if it's a way to just eliminate government jobs, I'm not for it. And what also concerns me is, there's many different models of UBI. There's many different versions of it. But the thing is, he says everyone gets it, automatic. Every American citizen, $1,000, fine. But there's going to be somebody who comes along.
Which already sucks. Because if you're going to have this, it should be to, like, literally every single person. It would have to every single person in the place.
And says, well, what about child rapists who get out of prison? Should they get $1,000? And everyone's going to say, no, we don't want pedophiles to get $1,000. And so then they're going to take that away from those people.
Yeah, and I mean, Scott Ritter Scott Ritter's got to eat,
right? And then they're going to say, well, what about axe murderers? Axe murderers, they shouldn't get it. And then they're going to take it away.
Why is he bringing up axe murderers? Is this the thing about Jackson Hinkle that he doesn't want to talk about? I mean,
from those people, and pretty soon you're going to have a layer of people that have nothing, right?
We already have a layer of people that have nothing. That's literally, we've got that. We already here. Like, shit, you live in fucking New York City. You haven't noticed the layer of people who have nothing. There, you can't walk down the sidewalk without meeting them.
If you've gotten rid of food stamps, you've gotten rid of all the social programs, you're going to have a layer of people there that have no ability to survive. And that's very, very dangerous. And that concerns me as well.
Well, it's very, very dangerous. Like, that's such a weird way to put it. Like, it's very, very dangerous. It is not what you would say if you were saying, say, that people should not be left with no means of survival. If you were trying to say that there was something inherently wrong with the idea of a society where people are left without the means of survival at all. It's very, very dangerous. Sounds more like he's worried that he might get robbed.
I don't buy that it would always be guaranteed to every citizen. That sounds nice on paper, but we all know there's a lot of very hateable people in this world that everyone would like to take money away.
No comment.
From. You know what I'm saying? And then that leads to some big problems. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, he's in the Libertarian Party. He must have empathy for the notion of very hateable people that nobody likes.
Yeah, I mean that's a slippery slope that I hope we don't slide down. I mean, I'm for reinstalling the voting right of felons, and I believe in reformation. I believe that people, are allowed second, third, fourth, fifth chances, and can. And
This motherfucker is just asking for his lunch money to be stolen. Actually, the more I look at this fucking suit, the more I realize it's reminding me actually of the way Egon in the Ghostbusters movie, the original one, dresses when they go to get the fucking mortgage on the firehouse.
can
Except that Harold Ramis has a much more listenable voice than this motherfucker.
grow and overcome, um, you know, their smaller states and the misdeeds that they've done. So hopefully we could set it up in a way that it doesn't, become that kind of a takeaway or
Like, notice that he's not even talking about the central thing. I'm not this, not the forward party douchebag, but and the main douchebag that we're here for. Like, because the obvious fucking critique is that the only way that this is actually a benefit to the working class is if it is sufficient money that people can say no, that people can turn down jobs, that people can turn down jobs if they're not paid enough, that people can say can hold out for more. If you had unconditional income that was enough to actually cover at the very least your basic expenses, so that you could actually, that you could get by and quit your job and still get by and wait for something decent, then you could say, yeah, there's actually an increase in working class bargaining power. But the thing is, that's precisely why that is never going to be the proposal. It is never going to be proposed to make it enough money for that. In fact, when you look at these pilot project reports on UBI, they will often say, as a positive, that it proved not to be a disincentive to work. And what that just means is that it did not reduce the sting of poverty and destitution. That's all that ever means. It means it wasn't enough money that people could hold out for better jobs.
zero sum game. I also think that, I mean, the newer versions proposed are a progressive universal basic income, so that the top 7 or 8% of earners, you earn your wage anyway, but net effect is that you actually end up getting taxed to fund the basic income of the lower 90%.
Okay.
And so there's all sorts of iterations that are coming out with it. I think it's a great leap forward as far as,
Like, I mean, it's really just so remarkable how completely devoid of anything, even not even a fake class analysis. Like, and at no point does he point out, in all of his like confused, incoherent discussion of, the problems of capitalism early on, does he ever point out that the central thing in capitalism, the central problem, is that you got people who have to work for a living, or they starve to death, or die of exposure, and you got people who get rich off of owning shit, and therefore are actually just getting rich by exploiting the labor of others. And that would be kind of a relevant thing to bring up when talking about a proposal like UBI. But since Caleb is so many light years away from anything to do with actual like class analysis, he doesn't even bring it up. Yes, class analysis is when you get your grades.
economic science and making money work for us again, because money's a tool for people. It's a tool for accounting, your labor and your contribution to society. And
They see totally nothing that a Marxist, nothing that any kind of communist would possibly have any objections to there. There's absolutely no notes, absolutely. I mean, money is just sort of a neutral tool thing, and not a big part of the problem with the way the society works, because you need it in order to live.
and it's gotten away from us as a tool. It's not really serving us. It's serving really wealthy people, and they're able to arbitrage their time and make money in ways that regular people can't. I'm learning.
Okay, what you just heard was a libertarian pointing out the central contradiction of capitalism. Coming close. Let me put it. It's coming closer to pointing out the central contradiction of capitalism. And the guy who claims to be the ideological leader who can school everybody on communism, he's just sort of looking at like, what do you mean? What do you mean there's a contradiction? Like, this is fucking wild.
This, getting out of college and struggling, working a regular job, it's tough times, and so, you know, I'm
what's this fucking nodding?
I think that there's a lot of room for cooperation, and I think that there's
like, he brings, and this is a direction I really did not see this going in. I mean, I had all sorts of sort of mental maps of how this was going to go. I did not have libertarian stumbles ass backwards into the central contradiction of capitalism, and Caleb Maupin just sort of nods sagely or gormlessly, depending on your interpretation.
You know, as you know, even you might see them as two wings of the extreme. I think that the Libertarian Party and socialists, they agree on a lot more than they think, and slowly, you know, and especially with episodes like this, you know, it comes out more and more that it's...
Okay, so what we're seeing here is all the dodgy fuckers who were already backing Andrew Yang, all the fucking Identity Evropa people who were connected to his campaign the last time. Caleb Maupin's gonna be joining those motherfuckers pretty soon, I think.
The establishment we're supposed to fight.
Great. Well, Nick, I've got a couple other people in line behind you. So I guess I want to thank you.
Okay. What's coming next? Let's get our bets in. What's coming next? He's about to bring in some new people.
For being polite and for putting your ideas. Is there anything you want to plug before you go?
No, thank you. Check out the Forward Party.
All right, cool. Thanks,
that was something that he was plugging, though. So I mean, surely that was more of a yes, please. But
and good luck. All right, so
okay, the first libertarian actually was closer to having some kind of like entirely accidental understanding of communism than Caleb Maupin has ever displayed. So, okay, let's see what happens next.
The next person that I see, and I'm going to have to kick the guest from studio because we got a lot of people coming in. It's filling up. The next person, I have to see your face if you come on. So Ryan Ashmiller, you're next, but I can't see you. So Samuel is next. So Samuel. Hey, Samuel.
God, it's another one of these fucking Tim Pool replicants. I mean, he just took off the beanie. That's all this is. Samuel T. Weed.
Hey, how you doing, Caleb? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, extremely.
Can you hear me?
All right, good. Yep, I can hear you.
All right.
Always got to check that. So first thing I want to say,
God, his voice is even more piercing than Caleb's. That's not his voice. He's got the gain on his mic turned out to the point where it's clipping the shit out of everything.
Is you totally mischaracterized what Joshua Smith said to you, saying he has kids. He said that he is having a kid tonight.
Okay, we got a different energy coming in here.
His wife is giving birth, so I'm sure he
called me a childless freak or something like that.
Well, I mean, you can't actually fault him on the factual accuracy. I don't think that, I mean, the one is the result of the other, but they are two facts about him that coexist. He is childless as far as we know, and he's a freak.
How does he know I don't have children? I could have 10 kids for all he knows. He also said that I was in college.
You could, but don't get nerves pricked or anything. You seem like a kind of guy who likes to debate ideas, right?
No, no, he isn't. But okay, I'm liking this energy. This is gonna be fun. I have a feeling we're have a good night. Have a good night. Good to see you, Mask. Yeah, I wanted to be Samuel T. Weed as well. Like, the Wild West weed guy. Yeah, middle name Tokes.
Sure. I mean, and that's the thing. That's why when this woman, she says communism is a death cult, and I say, well, actually, it's something else. And she just says,
Well, yeah, but you were wrong. I mean, she was wrong, but so were you.
You're retarded. That's not an argument, right?
What, he's like asking for confirmation that that's not an argument? I mean, actually, I think in libertarian circles that is considered an argument.
I mean, I can call her childish names also. And
yeah, he's written entire books doing it. Calling people childish names is kind of like one of his things.
And she blocks me, this Carrie.
Carrie Ann Harlos called you retarded?
And then she blocks me. And
I like how he seems to know all of these people. So, you know, he
starts tweeting then behind the block about how I actually want to sleep with her. Like, that's some AOC level bullshit, right?
How, okay. Not standing AOC, but how does AOC come into this? That's just random.
I mean, where does this idea that any woman that you debate, right, she can win the argument by saying, well, you just want to sleep with me.
Yeah, because that's how debates work.
And yeah, I think so. I think her response was,
wait. This is him trying to like establish a rapport with Samuel T. Weed by saying, "Hey, women, huh? All they have to do to win a debate with us is say, yeah, you probably just want to fuck me." When she doesn't know. She doesn't know. Actually, what I'd like to do is have her get her into a hotel room in Jersey City, and folks, we're gonna have her pay the rent on that hotel room, folks, and sell shitty merch, and then she's gonna do survival sex work.
Your assertion that communism brought China and Russia out of poverty
I mean, the only thing that is inaccurate in that is precisely that it was state capitalism. I mean, state capitalism led by parties calling themselves communist, but
in the 19th, 20th century, do you know anything about the Great Chinese Starvation?
Yeah. What I'm kind of curious about here, Samuel T. Weed, is how was China doing before that? Was everybody getting enough to eat before that? Like, I mean,
yeah, I do actually.
It was pretty good, right? Yeah, let's talk about that.
All right. Yeah. So
it was pretty good, right?
What was China like before the Chinese Communist Party came to power?
Oh, it was terrible, and it got much.
China like now?
It got much better after they killed all of the people by stealing
what is it
farms.
like now? I'm asking you what.
Well, I mean, this guy. This is gonna be different. We're gonna see how long he lasts on here. Is the other guy actually? I mean, I have to say, was surprisingly thoughtful for A, somebody associated with the Libertarian Party, and B, somebody who would come on this motherfucker's stream. This guy is not that. Samuel T. Weed is not the thoughtful type. He's just trotting out the talking points.
What is it like now? What is
China like now?
Compared to how it was before?
So you're saying that
no. Greatest is China better off now? So millions of people been lifted from poverty. How many power plants were there before the Chinese Communist Party came into power?
Oh, well, did they have pickles there?
How many are there now?
Did you just ask if they have pickles? Chat, help me out here. Is that what he just said? What the fuck do pickles have to do? Now I want pickles. and there are no good pickles in this fucking house.
Did they have
How many
pickles?
steel mills? Did you know China didn't have a single steel mill before the Communist Party came to power?
You
now
know,
they make half the steel in the world. Did you know that?
Before the Super Bowl era, China was way worse off. So I think since we started having the Super Bowl every year,
were there famines before the Chinese communists came to power?
Yeah, I mean, totally different vibes, Samuel T. Weed. And I'm beginning to think he probably also calls himself Samuel T. Weed.
There were famines before they came to power? Now, who cured the famines in China? Hundreds of millions of people were dying every year. Over and over and over, people were dying. They had the century of humiliation where
hundreds of millions.
All the time, under capitalism, under free trade, people were dying. The Chinese Communist Party came in. They
imperialism
brought to the countryside. They brought
this guy. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out is he going to explain what the fuck pickles have to do with anything? Is he going to just like trigger a pickle craving and not at the very least explain why he did it? In a house with no decent pickles, it's just these sweet pickle bullshit. Motherfucker, Samuel T. Weed, what the hell are you doing?
To the countryside, they mechanized agriculture, and yeah, in the 1960s there was a horrendous famine in the early 60s.
That just came about. It just came about.
That cured.
It came about.
No, yeah, it was a result of the fact that China was an underdeveloped country.
Well, I mean, it came from the fact that they fucked up agricultural policy. And the thing, I mean, and they genuinely did, because nobody actually sat and had to think about whether the sparrows might have had a useful function in the ecosystem from the point of view of agriculture. But, I mean, they did seem to have learned something or other from that.
That's what it was the result of. It was a result of the fact that China had been an underdeveloped country for so long, and they were rapidly trying to industrialize. And they clearly made mistakes in the process of industrializing. But then the Chinese Communist Party are the ones that prevented China from ever having something like that again, which happened all the time before they came to power. That's what you're missing. Right?
I mean, I think he's missing a lot of things. I mean, he's... He clearly just came in here with some just random shit that in his like libertarian bubble they think is just an absolute killer argument, and he is totally not invested. He's just like fucking giggling here.
You know, I mean, I don't understand this. Like, so I'm trying to think of an analogy that might be good, but it's like. It's like you know,
what the fuck is the deal with the pickles?
What might be a good analogy? If someone's a drug addict for 20 years and then they go into rehab, and after they've been in rehab for a year, they relapse, right? And then they go back into rehab and then they never use drugs again. Is rehab responsible for them using drugs?
Oh, so you're saying the opposite is true for communism?
I'm saying that.
What?
Communism cured China of having starvation, and you're saying that because there was an episode of starvation in the early 60s, that doesn't count.
Well, what actually happened in 1959? What happened?
In 1959, there was
what happened? Did someone come to power?
Policies that they were.
There is a sort of pickle that I recently, apart from one thing I loved about being in Britain was the Polish skleps, the polskie sklepy, because they would have the result of there being a significant Polish population is that you would get these amazing spicy Polish gherkins, and you just can't get them here for the most part. I absolutely love spicy gherkins. The closest thing I found is there's a kind of pickle brand called Sucker Punch, and those things rock. But now I can't find them anymore. And the pickles down here, it's like that pickle relish bullshit, which is really good if you're like, on a sandwich, if you're also putting like caramelized onions or something like that to give it some bite. But if you're biting, if you have a pickle craving and you want something spicy and salty, and you bite into one of these fucking things, it is the fucking I don't know what his deal with pickles are. We've moved on from pickles. Apparently, we're never going to find out what this motherfucker. Oh well, yeah, he probably is thinking about somebody. That is probably what he thinks about when he thinks about rehab.
Trying to rapidly industrialize. The Soviet Union cut them off, right? The Soviet Union had been helping them develop, and the Soviet Union cut them off. And they had people misreporting how much they were growing, and there was confusion, and it led to a disaster. The same kind of disaster that had happened over and over and over again. There was a famine in 1928 where millions of people died. There was a famine in 1946 where millions of people died.
See, I'm already seeing how this is going to work. This is going to end up being like a draw, because it's going to alternate between people who actually are clearly more thoughtful about these things than him, which doesn't take much, and people who clearly aren't. So it'll alternate between people actually kind of showing him up more or less by accident, and people he can clown on because they just don't give a fuck. Like Samuel T. Weed clearly is just not invested in this.
There was a famine in 1890 where millions of people died. There was famines all the time. Are those famines the fault of capitalism?
So your analysis is that the Great Starvation that happened in the late 50s and early 60s
is not representative.
No,
of the
your
characterization. Bad thing that happened.
Yeah, no, fucking let him. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but fucking let him finish. Let Samuel T. Weed finish. It's going to be a shitty point, but let's at least find out what the shitty point is.
One time that the Chinese Communist Party cured does not speak for the entire experience of that.
I want to ask you though, and I broke your rule.
Back to my drug rehab example, right?
Well, I broke your rule.
Uses drugs for 20 years, goes into rehab to stop using drugs, then relapses in rehab for a year, and then goes back into rehab and never uses drugs again. Did rehab cause them to be a drug addict?
So my question to you,
question. In that situation,
it is rehab's fault. Yes,
it's
in
rehab's fault.
Wait.
Retarded
really, even though rehab
analogy.
Cured them, but it just had a relapse.
I mean, it is a shitty analogy, but how the hell is it rehab's fault?
During the
so I want to know what you're honest, and let's have a good faith. Well,
I mean, that's clearly not going to happen. There's not going to be any honesty or good faith in this motherfucker.
Good faith discussion here.
China before the communists
is your assertion that it was a lack of central planning that caused the Great Starvation in China? It was a lack of central planning caused that?
Assertion is that the Great Leap Forward was a failure as they were trying to set up what they'd never had before, which was a modern agricultural system. And as they were bringing tractors to the country.
Yeah, like Samuel T. Weed is actually visibly deflated here. And I cannot take pleasure in it because it is visibly inflating Caleb Muppet.
Countryside, and as they were building power plants, and
he looks like he's gonna cry a little.
As they were constructing a national,
you realize how badly you have to fuck up to get clowned on by Caleb Maupin? Yeah, but does he have any fucking pickles?
Plan in order to get rid of these things.
Something the free market didn't do anywhere.
What, did this motherfucker just say that there have never been famines in capitalism? Is that what this motherfucker just said?
That wasn't able to be accomplished by the free market anywhere else in the industrialized world.
Really? Oh, he's there. He turns around and he qualifies it and says, in the industrialized world. Because the thing about the free market is that it mostly displaces the really abject misery towards what isn't the industrialized world.
Really? Because there were hundreds of millions of people that died before the communists came in. In 1928, Edgar Snow, the author of Red Star Over China, talked about how he was in 1928 in China and millions of people were starving to death. And one of the main reasons they were starving to death was because China had no central government to mobilize relief. When the crops failed in one area, the government had no ability. There was no central.
Yeah, because they were colonized by like 5 different countries, and the entire country was just an absolute total shambles.
Government. There were warlords that controlled different regions, and they had no ability to bring food from one area to another, right? But with the central leadership of the Chinese Communist Party, they were able to mobilize famine relief. So continue. You just have to let me talk. I'll mute you for a little bit.
Yeah, no, I know, because I broke your first rule. No, I was supposed to come on and talk about what I think communism is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this should be good. I mean, we're kind of running down towards the end of it. And I think I may actually continue this one for a 3rd episode just because it is so fucking promising. Well, yeah, the thing about inviting libertarians to your stream is that most of them are not going to be able to take down even a Caleb Maupin because their arguments are actually shittier. Like, that first guy was an absolute surprise.
Okay, communism is a beautiful idea for people who have the ability to mute others and for some reason think it's a good idea to tie a tie and then put a cover over it.
Okay. Like, Samuel T. Weed has absolutely no place to be criticizing other people's fashion sense, but yes, but you cannot blame this motherfucker's fashion sense on communism. You absolutely cannot, because he's not a communist. Unless you're saying that communism has decided to resist his fascist encroachment by somehow manipulating his fashion sense.
Fuck is that making childish insults now? So, all right, next.
Actually, that was a pretty good insult, though.
Next.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The chuds and the debate bros just really, yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot more of this too. I mean, how long is this thing? Hour and a half. We are 30 minutes in.
Next. There you go. Yeah, he was losing the argument there.
Yeah, well, he wasn't losing the argument on that horrible outfit of yours, Caleb. I mean, that really did suck.
Communists cured starvation in China, right? And somehow, because there was some starvation in the process, that proves that communism has never worked anywhere, even though communism turned China into a superpower, etc. But anyway, Ryan,
when is Caleb not sounding constipated?
I can't bring you on because I can't see your face. So next I'm going to bring on David O'Gwyn. Welcome, David. How you doing?
Wow, somebody with like worse idea of how to make a camera. Mississippi Libertarian Party at-large rep. Wow. We got not just libertarians, but fucking Mississippi libertarians. I think I'm going to leave this one for next time. I think we're going to have David O'Gwyn in his entirety and see where this goes when again we meet on this coming Friday at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Because I feel we should see this in its entirety. I mean, believe me, I absolutely would appreciate the funds, but the reason I have to sort of knock off at 1 a.m. is because there are other people here and they need to sleep, but I'm the only nocturnal person, so I don't want to keep them awake. If it were up to me, I would absolutely love to continue going. But, like if people want to like send tips to support the stream in general, I very much appreciate it. It's a it all helps continue all the various projects, and by keeping me going. So that's much appreciated in general. But I really do have to knock off at 1 a.m. because otherwise people who are very light sleepers can't sleep, and I then hear about it, and I try to avoid that. But if you enjoy the stream and you would like to, and you are able to, and you would like to support the stream, one way to do that is with the tip command. Is the tip command not going to work? You gotta be fucking kidding me. Oh, hey! Nightbot, thank you. And that is always very much appreciated for, people who are in a position to do it and feel like doing it. If you aren't in a position to do it, and nobody should feel bad, because I know exactly how that is. But it is very much appreciated for those who are and would like to. Thank you. I needed this. I'm glad that we continued on this vein, because this has been this has just been a rough mental health situation in general. I've been fucking falling apart myself. And I just needed something just pleasantly inane. And let me just say, I have been creating in the Discord. I think everybody here is in the Discord. Let me just drop that link there just in case everybody isn't, but I think everybody is. Sort of collection of my come down viewing. Videos that I watch when it's getting a bit much and I need to sort of remind myself that there are good things. And I started putting that together last night because it seemed like it was something that a lot of people might be able to benefit from. And so that's there as a thread, and if anyone wants to add stuff to that, like their own come down viewing or come down reading or whatever, I think that would be really cool. But I kicked it off with my first 3, which is a talking porcupine. Seriously, one of the best search terms on YouTube. These porcupines make amazing sounds. Jenny Nicholson reads reviews of spiders, which is just absolutely beautifully unglued. Jenny Nicholson is just generalized comfort viewing for me. And then also Basil Al-Hajj, and his ongoing love affair with the shawarma form. He's a food vlogger, he's a Palestinian food vlogger. I think he's based in London at this point. But he goes all around the world and checks out street food and stuff like that. And the man looks at a shawarma the way I would like somebody to look at me. It is just an absolute beauty to be beheld. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, River. I think I'll do that. So if people want to check that thread out and people want to add stuff to it, I would love to see it. And because I think we have a nice little group of people have come together here. Which is more than I ever would have hoped actually out of this. I was just, when I started this, it was my aspiration was mostly, I watch assholes and make fun of them. People laugh and occasionally send me money and say nice things in chat. But we've ended up, gradually over 3 years now, ending up with some really, really cool people coming together in here to the point where, there's a certain amount of mutual moral support going on, and I am absolutely there for it. I'm just very glad to see it because we fucking need that. This is a dire time. And the only way we're ever going to get through that is by being there for each other in one way or another, whether it's materially or morally or whatever. So, with that thought, yeah, Jenny is a sweetheart. I just love her stuff, and she just has such a sweet voice. It's so comforting. I'm gonna call it a night, and thank you to everyone. I look forward to seeing you on Friday.